Drilling a bunch of holes in your boat, that can be pretty intimidating, but if you want to add some cup holders, rod holders, or other accessories to your boat, you're probably going to have to do it. Now, I've drilled thousands of holes in different boats during the course of my career as a professional boat builder and repairman, but I get it for the DIYer. Maybe you don't want to do it or you're not sure how to do it. So today's episode is all about walking you through the process. How do we go from hardware that we want to install, such as upgraded cleats, some nice cup holders, even something like a steering wheel upgrade with a power knob, which can make your boat much more maneuverable, and additional rod holders for your fishing boat. These are all super easy DIY-able upgrades. Now, if you look over here, we're gonna pan across. We've actually already installed some of this hardware on our 29. And then if you look on this side, we have everything kind of laid out and plotted out as far as where everything's gonna go. And then a super nice assortment of pretty basic tools that you're gonna need to get something like this done. So I wanna go ahead and jump straight into it. I know everybody's time is valuable and we don't wanna waste it. Let's start by, for example, what are we using to lay out stuff? I like the blue tape from Scotch. It works super good. And what we've done is we wanna be sure wherever we're drilling holes that we're not in an interference with something that would be a problem. Like obviously, if you're gonna drill a hole for a cup holder, you'd wanna be absolutely sure that it was not landing right where you had a cross member or support. You also wanna be sure you've got plenty of depth. For example, if you're setting a cup holder in, do we have clearance underneath? Yes, we got plenty of room. Same for the rod holders and such. So my dad was always like, measure twice, cut once, which I know he didn't invent that saying, but it's a pretty common one and it holds true. So generally what I will do is lay everything out on one side. We'll start installing it, and then if it looks good and it works, obviously we're gonna duplicate it. Now, one thing you can also do is make some patterns and templates. These are actually patterns or templates for this cleat, and it makes installation. I'm gonna show you a little bit more about how we did that as we move through the video as well. So I'm gonna pivot on over, and I have found that having a shop vac available while you are drilling is a good idea. You can actually pick up a ton of dust, because if you've got like a ski boat or it's an area, for example, on our boat here, in our charter boat, this is where most of our clients sit during the day, and fiberglass dust is itchy. It's not good to be in your lungs. You don't want it on your skin. That's one of the reasons I always wear a long sleeve shirt, some latex gloves, and a quality respirator of some kind to keep the dust out of your lungs. Also not a bad idea to have some eye protection. Now, I like a 1/4 inch drill bit to start with, because it's the same as the bit size in a hole saw. And it's a little bit easier a lot of times to go ahead and establish your pilot hole just like so. Now we've got different sizes for our cup holders. Our larger ones are for like your big tumblers. This one's got to be a little bit shallower because I don't have as much tolerance or clearance here. So we're going to go with a small one and a large one. There we go. So another tool that's very important, going to be a carbide burr. Super handy for opening up these holes if they're too tight. Now, let's do a quick test fit. Now, I know from experience drilling the other ones that it's going to be a little tight on these particular cup holders. A 4-inch on these particular cup holders, a 4-inch is a little on the tight side, and if I jump up to a 4 and an 1/8, it's a little on the loose side. So I generally prefer that thing to be a little snugger. So what we're going to do is we're going to take carbide burr and open that up just a bit. Our supplier for all this hardware, by the way, Boat Outfitters is going to be the source for steering wheels. Actually, we recently installed some upgraded lights so that when we're launching and loading early in the morning, we can kind of see where we're going. And all your rod holders, cleats, Jim Lux. Been doing business with Jim Lux forever and with Boat Outfitters, and they just make really nice upgrades. Now, let's jump directly to our cleat upgrade. Now, I've already loosened the nuts on there. Simple matter of loosening things up, and we've already kind of cracked everything loose. But I want to show you what I would do. Now, you may be like, well, why would you even upgrade your cleats? Sometimes from the factory, cost is a factor. The smaller cleats are going to be less expensive than the bigger cleats, but a lot of times when we're using fairly heavy dock lines, these smaller cleats are fine on a small boat, but if you've got a larger boat, you're going to have bigger dock lines, and these smaller cleats just can be difficult to get a good wrap. You just don't have enough room on them. So we're going to be upgrading from a 6-inch to an 8-inch cleat. Really, really nice. I tell you, that's one of those things that in hindsight, when we built this boat, I was on a super tight budget. We needed several of them. I went with the smaller ones. In hindsight, I regret it. I wish I would have went ahead and spent a little bit more and went with the bigger cleats. But I want to show you one of the things that can minimize some anxiety when it comes to drilling holes is making templates or patterns. And so what we've done is I've taken like some of the insulation board or dowel board, and you can actually take a cleat like this one, and a lot of times what we'll do is we'll just put it on the foam, and you can hit it down and get like a little indentation or a start in the foam. And I'll make a rough template or pattern, make sure it fits, and then we will transfer that. Like, okay, for example, I'll show you over here. We took this one, a better example. We took the nuts off of it and the hardware off of it, put it on the foam, hit it a couple times, made some indentations, opened it up. Now we got a rough template, and then I took that and transferred that to a finer piece of like 1/8. This is like sign board material, which y'all have seen me use this stuff before here on the channel. And then you can get a more accurate template or pattern. And in that way, you know exactly how the placement for things is going to lay out. I'm just going to go over these. It's not a problem. I'm going to actually drill outside of them, and I'm looking for these edges. If you look right there, you can see the edge of that bolt hole and the edge of that bolt hole. I'm just going to center these larger holes up right on the edge of those, and then when you get up from a higher view or an overview with that template or pattern, you can see if it looks symmetrical and if it's in line with the boat and you like the look of it. I'm pretty happy with that. And then it's a simple matter of plotting out your main bolt holes and then also the recesses for the shafts of the cleat. Without a template, it's really difficult. You may get this, it may get shipped to you, and you look at it and you're like, how do I even begin to mount this? Which one of the reasons we're upgrading these cleats too, maybe you have an older boat that has a standard cleat that's in the upright position all the time. Those can actually be a hazard. Sometimes, like if you're going to jump off the boat or you're swimming or your clothes may get hung up, or even body parts, you get hung up on the thing if the cleat is up. Whereas these retractable cleats, you got this nice smooth finish, even like with fishing lines, or it's just you're less likely to stub your toe on them. So it's a really, really nice upgrade. But the same goes for the cleats as the cup holders. You just want to be sure that there is clearance and that there is room underneath, or else you're gonna have a big problem. sometimes you got to partially disassemble these a little bit. These are necessary if it's going to be in a compartment that can't drain. You don't want any water to run through the cleat, but in this boat, it's not a problem. Now, not too bad, but we need a little bit. Need to open it up just a little bit. And that's quite all right. You see how nice that looks. Otherwise, you got a larger old style cleats that are up all the time. You stub your toe on them. If you're going to slide over the side of the boat, your shorts might get hung up on them. So that is an upgrade. Now, we're down to rod holders. And on a boat like this, our main business is fishing. You can't have enough rod holders on a boat. If you're going with their standard rod holders, if I'm not mistaken, that's a 2, yeah it is, it's a 2 1/8. And there you go, a 2 1/8. And for our application, a lot of times I like what they call a 15-degree rod holder. You can see this is at a slight angle off to 15 degrees. That way we can put a rod there and it will hang slightly over the side of the boat. All right, here we go. And I'm gonna drill this one at a slight angle. I'm gonna get it slightly started. Now this is where the trick comes in, the pros. This is gonna be angling inward. If you're trying to figure out what angle to drill at, all you're gonna do is set your rod holder up here kind of in line with the hole you wanna drill, and then tilt or angle your drill to more or less match. Now remember, we're trying to mimic this angle, 15 degrees, 15 degrees. About like so. That little Makita 90 degree, by the way, that thing works great for doing this kind of work. The leverage that you have on this, like when you're drilling these big hole saws, sometimes they can torque or twist. If you've never used a drill with them before, they'll spin. But on one of these drills that has the 90-degree head, you've got a lot more leverage back here to hang on to it versus your standard inline. Sometimes when you're drilling with these, they'll bind and catch, and you got to be super careful. So if you're new to this, use a lot of caution. And if you don't have one of these little Makitas, and I'll be sure to put a link, these things even come in super handy. We recently had to drill some holes like right up in this corner, and a conventional drill just would not, you know what I mean? Like you can get into spaces that a conventional drill would never get into. So keep that in mind. That might be one of those little tools you'll want to add in your kit. Of course, there are other companies out there that make them, but I've had really good success with Makita stuff in the past. And generally what I will do is use our little speed square we got over here. When we were plotting all this stuff out, I'm kind of using the tow rails on our boat as a guide to get a center line or a center mark. So basically we find the center where we want things and we get a cross mark there, and then that way we know exactly where we need to be for alignment for our actual hole. So you can see right here, this main line, inline, I'm gonna line this hole up with that one. That's in the center of the rod holder right there, just kind of eyeballing it. And then you can move right back to your 1/4 inch. Let's go ahead and do a little, start just a little there. And I like to drill at a slightly outward angle, especially when you have these angled rod holders. A lot of times you kind of want to shoot the angle of the hole you're drilling slightly to the outside of the hole. The beauty of the material that this boat is built out of, it is the Coosa board. It's a 26-pound density, the Blue Water 26. And again, boat outfitters can help you out with all of your core materials. But what's so nice about mounting hardware is we really don't have to worry about water intrusion like you do with plywood or any kind of wood. You would have to be super careful about sealing all these and siliconing or 4200 or some other high-grade marine sealant. But on this, we can pretty much bolt this stuff straight down, with the caveat being that, like with our cup holders, we're going to be using some silicone to just hold it in place. Now, Boat Outfitters also has some other hardware that I thought I'd point out, like specialty stuff. Like this is actually going to be the through-hole fitting for our other boat that we've been working on. We're going to be upgrading or replacing. A lot of times you may think you have stainless steel fittings in your boat, but sometimes they can just be plated, like chrome plated, like plastic. It looks like it's metal, but it's not. And these are actually really nice stainless steel through-hole fittings. And then even like in this boat, this is a self-bailing cockpit scupper, and there's actually like a little check ball in there, and that way water goes out but it doesn't come back in. And these two work together. This will be down in the side of the boat, and this is up in the cockpit with a hose connecting the two. So again, Boat Outfitters, they have all this cool stuff, and it's kind of fun to accessorize your boat and customize it. With these big cleats, we've already drilled this out. It's not a problem if you have some little holes like that from your previous cleats. If your bigger or newer cleat covers those up, again, with the Coosa board, you don't have to worry about it. But if you don't have Coosa board, or you're worried about the structural integrity of the area, you could use something like the vinyl ester structural putty from Fiberglass Warehouse. That is pre-made, pre-thickened, super heavy duty, and you could go in here and we could like backfill those little holes. And I've got videos here on the channel discussing all that kind of stuff, which, if I haven't mentioned it already, and you've been following the channel, you know that, but Fiberglass Warehouse has a very decent FISHBUMPTV discount code. And when you call the folks at Boat Outfitters, be sure to mention FISHBUMPTV. They got a special situation there they can help you guys with. They're aware of the channel and they can work with you specifically. So I'm not going to worry about putting any silicone on this, but I did want to show y'all something else that is a product I've been using for a while. This is a Teflon based, it's a gel that works really good with stainless steel fasteners and hardware. Anybody that's ever worked with stainless steel knows that sometimes it can gall or gum up on itself. So I have gotten in the habit of always putting some kind of Teflon coating or Teflon gel on the threads before installation. And it doesn't have to be on all the way up the thread. You don't want big thick gobs of it because I don't want it to come off on the holes that we drilled, but a little goes a long way, basically. And that, again, is Tef Gel. Been using this for a long time. It's just a product I really like, and I'll try to put a link to that. So we got a very decent Amazon store. All the tools, all the supplies, either available through Fiberglass Warehouse or our Amazon store. So cleat goes in. They do provide you with some really nice big beefy washers there to kind of spread the load out a bit. And I like to put that Teflon gel at the base, and as you're running that fastener up, it's gonna grab it. And we would typically, again, to maximize y'all's times and to save everybody on efficiency, obviously you would sync that up, run those fasteners up nice and tight, and you are good to go. Don't need to go super crazy over tightening them. Sometimes people think you really got to torque down on stuff, but you can actually crush the core, the Coosa board or plywood if it's in there. So just be mindful, just nice and snug is all you got to do. You do not have to go wrenching down on it super hard. Now, as far as your cup holders, this one was a nice snug fit. I want to be sure that there's no dust or residue. and I'm using just a good 100% silicone. This is their Supreme, really the better stuff. Now you can pony up for like the marine grade silicones, but I looked this morning, marine grade silicone like from 3M was like 38 bucks a tube, and this was like 14 bucks a tube. Now, if you're trying to do something below the waterline or super critical, then you might want to pony up and get the more expensive silicone. But I have been using the GE brand for like deck hardware and this kind of stuff. Again, because this is not a super critical application. And you got to be, the way you would put the silicone on there, you can either be super careful around the lip, but when you're installing it, a lot of times it'll get on the outside of your piece of hardware. So I tend to prefer putting a little bead. This is a brand new tube, so let me see if I can do this. Just gonna run a little bead around. There you go. Be sure to release the tension on that thing. And then that's just enough that when you install this in there, it'll keep this thing from hopping out. Now again, this particular one was a kind of a jam fit. It was nice and tight, but once that silicone sets, it'll stay put. Sometimes you can also come back if you want to do a little more. You could put a little bead around in there to kind of help hold it, but I kind of like it sometimes where they stay put, but they're not in there so tight that it's a bear to get them out, because sometimes we want to deep clean around them or we want to take them out. Occasionally, we use this boat so hard we may roll a fresh coat of Gelcoat on every 2 or 3 seasons. Now, the same deal for our rod holders, folks. On this side, I've already drilled the holes. There's no need to put any silicone at all, but I do like to get any of that fiberglass dust off of there, and I really like a little bit of the Tef gel on your threads to minimize the chance of that galling. If you've ever dealt with stainless steel fasteners, they have a tendency to do that sometimes. If y'all are enjoying the content too, please remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Tell me what kind of project you're working on, and we're always interested in hearing what kind of projects y'all would like to see us working on. The channel currently has over 200 videos, everything from the build of this 29-footer from scratch all the way up to Gelcoat and all kind of repair projects. And one reason it doesn't scare me a whole lot to drill holes in boats is because I know how to fix it if I make a mistake. So it really kind of helps build your confidence if you're like, you know what, if I drill something in the wrong place, not the end of the world. You know what I mean? It's almost everything can be repaired. I want to make sure that those fasteners are kind of lined up. Stainless steel, good quality marine grade fasteners. And this can kind of help show you. I wish they did it a little differently, but they run, the bolt fasteners come out so close to the holes sometimes that if you don't drill those at a slight outwardness, a lot of times it's really hard to get your washer on there. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I was saying drill slightly out to the side. Now, we've got, y'all come on back here with me. Now this is something I'm actually super excited about. I've been wanting to upgrade my steering wheel for a while. We spend an awful lot of time on this boat. We're approaching 10,000 miles of use on this boat already. And this was actually an older steering wheel that I had around the shop when I built this boat, and I used it for a while, but time for an upgrade. So I'm going to show you folks. Generally, if you've never worked on these, there's usually going to be a little trim cap right there, and then you got a big, let's see, that is that a one inch. By the way, Boat Outfitters also built me this super nice little custom glove box. Super good place to put your cell phone during the day, or I keep my captain's log in there. And they are also in the process of building me a custom switch panel that will be going all the way across. It's custom made just for this boat. So y'all will have to follow up and stay tuned on the channel for that episode. Now, usually what you can do is if you put a little upward pressure on the lift on the steering wheel, there it goes. It seems weird, but basically you lift a little bit and then you hit the shaft down, but you want to be absolutely sure that the threads aren't exposed. I was using right there, the shaft nut was protecting it from making contact. And there's nothing wrong with this steering wheel. I may use this in the future. Somebody might like to have it. Now, one thing to remember with steering wheels is the larger the diameter they are, the more leverage and the more force you're going to have. It's going to be less steering effort. So a lot of boats, that may be another reason to upgrade. A lot of factory boats come with like a little bitty, like a 13-inch steering wheel. And if you upgrade to like a 15.5, 16-inch steering wheel, you're going to have a lot more leverage on the input shaft there. And that's going to make the steering effort easier. Now, this one has the power knob on it, which it is actually really, really nice. Now we're just lining up the keys. Matter of fact, there's a little bit of residue on there, but the same deal. I'm gonna put a little bit of the tough gel. Anything you have on your boat, like on my propellers, when we check them, a lot of times instead of grease, I use this. If you have stainless steel fasteners, if you have a steering shaft, like y'all notice how easy that came off of there. It's because when I installed it, it had some of the Tef gel on it. Matter of fact, you can kind of see the white residue. That will save you headache and heartache down the road for sure. All right, so we're gonna line up our keyway just like so, and much prettier. Look at that. So you got this really nice polished. Now this is a Jim Lux steering wheel as well, and again, it's all available from boat outfitters. And you remember to use your FISHBUMPTV code there. Be sure to mention. So this one's going to be a little bit bigger. That's 1.25 inches on that one. Let's snug that one down just a little bit. It doesn't take an awful lot. Probably get it snug and then go to like 1/4 to half a turn is about all you're going to get. Now, if you've never had a boat with one of these steering knobs, what it gives you a huge advantage when you're docking this thing. And for a lot of people, docking your boat can be challenging. It can be intimidating. There's whole YouTube channels dedicated to people trying to put their boat on the trailer and come to the dock. And a power knob allows you to very rapidly crank from left to right. You can see how positively I can hold that, and you can really spin this thing around, and just gives you a lot more control. It makes you look like a pro at the boat dock. Now, we've got more videos coming. Again, actually the switch panel that's coming from Boat Outfitters, and they are actually working on right now building us some custom tackle lockers that are going to be replacing our current. This was kind of our current situation. Again, time and money when we were building this thing, but they did such a beautiful job. And I've had several people say, man, that's one of the coolest things you could put on the boat. I keep my trolling motor remote in there, some extra batteries, sometimes just some little lights or just accessories. It's just nice to have things that you regularly use at your fingertips. So I'm trying to think, I didn't want this video to be terribly long, but I wanted it to be informative, and I hope y'all got the gist of it. If there was something that I missed during the install, please comment down below. Sometimes I can do a follow-up video, and I try really hard to answer all my questions. But as a summary, just remember, double check your spaces underneath to be sure you have plenty of depth for whatever hardware you're going to install to clear. You also have to be super careful. Like this boat is wide open, but rainwater could get through there and rainwater can get through there. So you would never want to drill holes in a boat that's a closed or sealed cap and water can't get through. And sometimes you may have trouble determining if that's the case or not. Talk to a friend, comment down below, or we even offer Patreon as a service. So for people that are doing like full restorations and renovations, you can deal with me directly, send pictures, ask me questions, and that's through our Patreon. Again, Amazon's got all the supplies we use. Reach out to Boat Outfitters and Fiberglass Warehouse. But for now, I think we're going to tune out. It's Captain Joe here with Island Marine Charters, FISHBUMPTV on YouTube. My son Logan working hard behind the scenes as my amazing cameraman. And we'll catch you in the next episode.